We just jump in. We
All
do
right,
like
welcome
okay.
to Fire Excel.
No. Yeah, this is good. What's up, everybody? Derek O'Briggs here, and here's another episode of FXL. And today I have a special guest. Dun, 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 dun.
Bum, 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 bum.
Eric Nunez. Did I say it right? I fucked it up. Good, yeah.
you said
And
it
of course, we have our wonderful co-host, Bon Bon. Bon, 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 bon. So today's episode is about therapy. We're just gonna have a conversation about it. I called my friend Eric up. Eric is now a licensed therapist. But it's like, is there more?
Yeah, it's a licensed clinical social worker.
Wow. And yeah, I love that for you. How long did it take?
Oof. 2 years.
Mhm.
2 years the licensing process, but then, of course, 2 years of school.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
All right.
like 4-6 years.
Quite some time.
Quite some
Yes.
time, yes.
And if a lot of people don't know, I've known Eric for like years. And he just told me it's been 10 years now. Jesus Christ. 10 years.
10 years.
Wow. Damn. That was a long
Congrats
time
to you
ago.
guys.
Congrats, right? Because some people don't make it. Some people don't make it 10 weeks. And it, I've just like over social media and this through our friendships, I've just like we've been watching each other grow. And you was in New York, and I moved to New Jersey, yada yada yada, and we just like kept in touch. And then you came out to LA first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
you was.
LA.
Yeah, you're from LA.
Mhm.
All right, what part?
So Central.
Okay. All right. You see, there you go. That's where I hear it. Yeah, because he has that New York spunk and funk to it, and then he has that little jab of
There will
South
always
Centric.
be a Cali swag.
Cali side.
There will always be a Cali swag.
So tell us about your journey. Like, what made you want to get into therapy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, so I'm Puerto Rican and Black.
Mm.
I come
Yeah.
from a
Yes.
very dysfunctional, loving Puerto Rican family.
No!
You know, when you,
No! This is where mine stems from.
right, so I saw behaviors growing up where I would sit back and be like, that's not normal.
Right.
You know, like I know there are not other families treating each other like that
Right.
is not
Yeah,
normal,
that's-
right?
yeah.
So I was like, I
A lot of
want
families,
So
yeah.
we thought.
to, right. So I wanted to learn behavior, right? Because I wanted to learn behavior because I didn't want to pick up on the behavior, right? So that's why I got into therapy. That's why I got into social work, was to help other individuals navigate this thing we call life, but also to help myself navigate behaviors that I did not want to pick up from my family.
Right. And then, like what they say, like, trauma bonding and those relationships, those experiences that just those generational traumas that kind of just spill into, your childhood and just growing up. This is part of the reason why I want to do shows like this, just to have a space where people can have a conversation about behaviors and why we do the things that we do. I'm by far not an Oprah or I'm in my shit, and I like to talk about it, and I like to talk about it with other people and figure out a solution and just like, take it to the next step, but human behaviors, just studying humans are just, we something else.
It's definitely tricky, but what he was saying about like behaviors and stuff that our parents had and stuff, because it's like my parents are also Puerto Rican, and it's just like shit that I saw. It's just like, I'm not about to become
like,
you. I don't want to be you.
Right.
Right.
When I get older, and that was also a reason why I was studying psychology as well,
Okay.
because that's what I wanted to pursue.
Wow.
Just
I can
like-
see you can still do it.
You should still do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to school for it still, so
Yeah.
it's just like
I can see you there. Mm-hmm.
I often think about like communication. Right?
Yeah.
So like in a Puerto Rican household,
Yeah.
we yell at each other,
Yeah.
right? And
It's like
that's
that in
how
my
we
house.
express
That's
each
love.
other,
Yeah.
right? That's love,
Yeah.
right? So when I was like growing up and in my adolescence and like dating and stuff, that's how I would communicate. People would be like, "Why are you yelling?
Like, why are you aggressive, right?
Like, why are you aggressive?" And
Yeah.
after a while, I was like, "Well, I used to be like my mother. Well, this is how I talk."
Right.
Right, and then after a while, I was like, "Oh wait, no, but that's not how I
Right.
have to talk. I
Yeah.
don't have to pick that up."
Right. Like, I don't have to be like that in relationships. It's interesting because I was like that too. Like, my grandmother was very loving and loud. My mother, my sister, very, very loud individuals. But again, you pull, like, what you learn as you grow up, it bleeds into your relationships,
It
and
really
it's
does.
like,
Sadly, it does.
and one of the things too, and I don't want to fault, because I did do a therapy session years ago when I was a little younger. My therapist said, don't blame your parent because they did the best what they knew? What was it like?
Oh, yeah,
But what they
absolutely.
knew, they loved you. There's no manual on how to raise a kid
For
at
sure.
a certain
Yeah.
age or in a certain community or environment, and so they did the best that they can, and then you
Right,
just
that
have to
doesn't
take.
happen overnight, though.
Right,
You
yeah.
can't just be like, "Oh, yeah, my mom did the best that she could,"
Right.
right? And I
It
get
comes
it.
Right.
a time where you gotta accept it, and that's
Right.
like over time
Yeah,
where
it
you
does
gotta
take time.
accept it. It's
No, it
just
definitely
like
takes time.
that's just you.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
say, there's a quote that says, "If the pain is deep, you have to let it go many times."
Mm. Oh, you know what?
In the process of doing that.
Mhm.
Where's the tissue, Lord? Yeah, it's really, really true. So I remember one of our shows, you said you haven't done any therapy at all.
No.
Are you interested in starting?
Yeah. So I signed up for like a therapy session, and it's like coming up,
Okay.
and
Are you excited about it?
listen. So therapy for me, it's like I would love to do it, but then I have so much trauma. I have no idea where to begin with my trauma.
So that's where I bring it to you. What do you say to people like that into the world? Like, hey, I want to do therapy, or there's some resistance. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
What would you recommend? They just jump in, or
Well, one, I think people need to see therapy as like it's a dating process. You have to get to know different therapists to see what therapist fits with you, right?
Okay.
Because you may or may not mesh very well. My first therapist was a 57-year-old white woman, right? And on our 7th session, I said, "Yeah, so my sister's dating this fuck nigga," and she sat there and she said, "What's that?" I said, "You're not a therapist for me." No, but I'm serious, right?
Right,
If your
yeah.
therapist is not speaking your language or
Language,
understanding
yeah.
your dialect or where you're coming from, that may not be a good fit. Or
Yeah.
your cultural values, right?
Sure.
If you have to constantly explain yourself or behaviors, that therapist
your
might
language
not be it for you.
Yeah.
And that was like for me, like when I was doing my like therapy or trying to figure out like my therapist and stuff. For me, I was like going through like a list, and I was just like, I don't know how I can relate to this. Because
Right.
like, so English is not like my first language, like Spanish is. So
Right.
it's like I need a therapist. Is like when I'm telling those stories
Right.
from like my adolescence, like if it switches to Spanish, I'm gonna need her to just pick up on it,
Right.
and we're gonna continue whatever
Exactly,
language you
right.
pick it up on, because it's like. I do tend to get emotional and stuff, and there are times where it's just like I will switch to Spanish, and it's just like I need you to pick up. But it's like at the same time, it's like I don't know if too many therapists out here will understand Puerto Rican household and how that is a tough love that you get at adolescence. But
We got them. They're out there.
They're out there.
They're out there.
They are out there, but I will say that it's difficult to find, right?
Mm.
When we think about the therapist population in the U.S. right now, only 6% are of color.
Oh, really?
Out of all the therapists in the U.S., 6.
Damn. That is a
Right,
very-
so it's like yes, they are out there, but you have to look for them.
yeah,
Right.
Now, how do you feel about the therapy like online, or if let's say she finds the therapist that mesh with her and she can't see them in person? How do you speak to the ones that's like?
what I have to do.
Oh,
So
it's
mine's
online.
is like
Virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah, mine's is virtual, and
Mhm.
I'm like I feel like a part of me would feel better going in person.
Yeah.
There are individuals that really thrive off of in-person sessions versus virtual, right? I do a hybrid model, so it really depends on the client. If you want to see me in person, we can meet in person. If you want to meet virtual, we'll meet virtual.
Okay.
I personally like in person, right? Because I get to see body language. If we're
Exactly.
talking about something and I start seeing you tense up, I know that that's a sensitive topic.
Right.
So I'm going to skip around that versus diving deep. Versus we're on a virtual session, I can't really see your body language.
Exactly.
I'm
You can
going to
only
dive deep.
see.
Well,
Yeah.
can you just tell them to sit a certain way when it comes to?
But I feel like,
Me, I'm gonna give
Sure,
you lights.
sure.
I'm gonna-
Absolutely,
like
you can,
a
right? But
good.
you're also going to feel energies,
Yeah.
and you're going to see eye movement differently. So you
Yeah.
have to pay attention to those.
that shit
things.
gonna start glitching and shit. Imagine.
Right, but
Frozen.
Right, it's also that piece too. Is
Yeah.
that there's also technical issues. I had technical issues today with all of my sessions, and they weren't the best sessions.
Oh wow.
Right, but that's because they're virtual sessions.
But what about? I've also had some really good conversations with some therapist friends over the phone, though. Like sometimes the vibe off the phone is good. The vibration.
It really depends on the client and how they prefer. Some people thrive on virtual. Some clients are like, in person or not for me. I get really nervous when I talk to you in person. So can we do it over the phone? And over the phone, there's more dialogue.
Oh,
So it really
okay.
depends on the client and how they prefer.
And you're able to do either or. Like you're open to. Okay.
So I'm
Alright,
going to
cool.
ask my questions regardless.
Right. So I'm gonna get to it.
Right.
He gonna break you down.
But if you are nervous about therapy, I think it's asking yourself what scares you about it. Is it facing yourself? Is it reliving it? Is it processing? Is it thinking about potentially having to let go of certain people around you?
I would say for me, I would say it's probably three of those things that you said. For me, it's probably facing myself, reliving it, and then the process, like figuring out how to get over it and stuff. Because there's a lot of times where it's just like,
but you don't get over it. That's a misconception in therapy. We don't get over things. We just learn how to cope better with things because it's part of you.
Yeah.
Your trauma ain't going nowhere.
Right. It's there. Right.
It's gonna be there. Right?
Okay.
It's learning how to be like, it's there, but I'm no longer going to allow it to affect me. Or when I see it, I'm not gonna be all tense up.
Right.
Or
when I'm triggered, not allow it to control my situation or experience.
Right? The baggage just becomes lighter.
Yeah.
True. I guess like you just
then it becomes a carry-on. You know, bring all this luggage in this relationship. I'm really, really excited. I didn't want to come up with like a whole bunch of questions. I just want us to kind of just dive in and just really, and it's the same thing with the fans and people watching, like what questions would you have for a therapist? Because I didn't want to just like control the narrative what this conversation should be, because therapy is a different experience for everyone.
Yeah.
But I also think it's important that people, you know, kind of like look into it, you know. You don't want to force into it, and you know, and I'm totally happy, you know, I even had a conversation with my mom about it. In the beginning she was like, oh, well, just go to church, and I'm like, oh, no, you can still go to church and have your religion and speak to the pastor, but you can, then there's therapy. And then she started understanding that, you know. Yeah.
So what is it about church?
You know,
What is it about church?
you know, also I'm gonna put it out there. I like to call myself a radical therapist, right?
Okay.
Which means that I am aware that there are core values and core beliefs that I have to stand by the state or the nation, and standards and the board or whatever. But I'm also aware that they were written by white cisgender men who sit in white supremacy.
Right.
So I challenge those standards a lot, and I think that one of the standards is that you're not supposed to bring up religion, right? But we have to talk about religion in therapy of why people don't come to therapy because of that.
Right.
Because our household is like, oh, you have emotional issues? Go to church. Right. Or drink some milk.
Right.
You don't know how to process I'm going to pray about it.
Right.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. We're supposed to believe in a higher power
Yeah.
and have that, have that purpose. But at the same time, you got to get off your ass and do something.
Right. You got to do the work, especially as you're getting older. And when you start like noticing behavior and like when it comes to potential dates or people you work with.
Right.
Right.
Red flags. Like now you can tell them.
You know, like how do you feel about red flags when people start seeing red flags? What do you speak, like, how would you speak to that? Like
red flags? Red flags in what though?
Like relationships with people and dating.
Like on
warning
personal
signs.
level or like on a client level?
Both.
Let's do personal.
Well, let's do personal.
Let's do
Let's do personal.
Well, I was having this conversation the other day, and someone was like, what is one thing that you hope to know before becoming a therapist? And I said that I wasn't expecting it to affect my social life or my dating life, right? Because it's like when I go on dates, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're having
Are
conversation, I'm like, ooh, emotional immaturity,
Stop.
lack of accountability, ooh, yeah, mommy issues, right? So it's like I know that someone's going to come with red flags, and sometimes it's hard to turn the therapist off. But I also have to be aware that like that's my perception of your issues. You may not see them as issues. So I have to make sure I hold myself accountable within that moment and check myself and take away the therapist hat and just be a human being in the moment.
But do you still like bring it up by around the third date? You know what I'm saying? You don't bring
That's
up
not my role.
So you don't bring up any things that you
My role is to be
notice?
a potential partner, not your potential therapist.
Wow.
So that part, I feel like in so many motherfucking relationships, somebody in that motherfucking relationship, especially in mine, I'm the fucking therapist. Like, I'm the therapist. Like, okay, yes, if it's me, like, tell me all your trauma.
I think there's a difference between, like, venting to your partner for support and then venting to your partner and then expecting them to tell you how to navigate that.
Yeah, some people don't know how to.
Well, yeah, some people don't know how to navigate it.
It's like, I can't tell you how to navigate that, right? Yeah. My grandmother used to say, baby, if you don't know what to do in that, you got to sit in that.
Yeah.
You got to know, you got to fill it out so that when you sit in it again, you know how to manage it.
You're right.
That's true.
I can't, I don't, so when, I think when you see red flags, you have to ask yourself, is this something that I'm willing to deal with?
Yeah. Man, listen, we want to have a FXL therapy weekend retreat. It's a lot I want to say. It's so much I want to say that I can't really,
Well, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask like a question, totally off topic, none relating to therapy. What is your zodiac sign? And do people bring up zodiac signs in therapy?
So
are you allowed to discuss that?
Yeah. So when I say that I'm a radical therapist, I'm more like holistic, right?
Okay.
So I'm into astrology. I'm into I let all my clients know I'm going to send you to my healers, right? So the person who does my energy work, my body work, my medium, because I'm into all that shit. So I'll send.
I was going to talk about that too.
All my referrals, all my clients to them. But for sure. So I am a Leo. That's my sign. But I am a Cancer moon and a Virgo rising. So I'm emotional, aggressive, and I thrive for fucking perfection.
I was about to say, it's like, whoa, from water to earth. On top of that fire,
come correct.
Please.
Yes. Yeah,
so I'm all three. I would be extremely strong on the outside, that Leo pride, but deep down inside, I'm like, oh my God, I'm crumbling. And then I'll thrive for perfection, so I'll make sure I look good while I'm doing it.
Listen, this one here, he today, I was getting ready, I was like, look, I was like, I gotta make sure the shit's right for Eric because he don't fuck around.
Wait, so now that he told us his, do you know like your
I'm Capricorn. I forgot my rising though. But definitely we had a conversation about this, like our signs, and I'm very headstrong, and I can also be emotional. I'm also a perfectionist to some degree.
You are to some degree.
Right, that's me,
And stubborn.
Yeah.
And hard-headed.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not go down a list,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Capricorns...
The realist.
Right.
I think Capricorns have good qualities.
Yeah. There was times I was just seeing like a whole bunch of people on Facebook like getting engaged. And I was just like,
mad?
No, not mad, but I just, it did rub me, I was like,
Like you want to find your person.
Yeah, I was like, I want that. And then I'll just turn it off and then like focus on a goal or a project or something. Yeah.
The girls want to be seen and loved, but are they allowing themselves to be seen and loved?
So unpack that. What does that really mean?
So I think to a certain degree, we all want to be valued and cherished and seen, right, as an individual. But are we allowing for people to see all of us, the good and the bad, to be able to cherish it all?
Yeah.
Let me prepare you.
Right?
Sex in our community, in the gay community for men, especially men of color, can also be sometimes weaponized, into a thing is like, oh, this is my only power. Like I'm either going to have sex with you and it's amazing, or I'm not, or I'm going to use sex to control you and get what I want. Like those people that just out there just this is just a moment, go home.
I feel like you have that with women though as well. No matter like what type of relationship it is. Like
I was just speaking for like my experience.
Yeah, of course. But it's just like I feel like everybody, if you are that person to like manipulate the situation and twist it, I feel like everybody will at least experience that.
Yeah, what do we call that?
I'm sorry?
What do we call that? I would call that emotionless sex.
Emotionless sex, yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm going to all I want is the nut, right? So I'm going to figure out a way to finesse the nut, but then
after
once
that,
it's over,
like
then it's
play in the back burner again.
Yeah. And then you get to a point where you just don't want to do that. It's like, where's the connection?
That's true.
Even for me at one point, it was just like, what was it? I had a session with a therapist one time, and she was like, I'm starting to notice or hear that sex was, what she said, an extracurricular activity. It was just like something I was doing. But inside of that, I was also learning about myself and the individuals that I was meeting, because I was like, well, I was looking for a boyfriend. I mean, I'm not there now, but I was just like, then it was just a lot of sex, and then I was just like, okay, there's nothing there, I don't want to get into all to that because I feel
like for people to have emotionless sex, like I feel like you have to like detach from something.
You do.
Something hurt
you're avoiding something.
Yeah. Something hurt you that you're just like.
Yeah.
You're just detached.
You're avoiding. You're escaping your reality.
Sometimes it's gonna escape. Like for some men, if they had a long week, they'll go have a beer or they'll go to the gym or stuff like that, and there'll be moments where I realize, my Friday night will be, like hooking up, and so. I wanted to have a conversation about that because I don't want to seem like I'm looking down on that, like, oh, you can't hook up. Yeah, like if you want to just hook up, but within reason, right? Like I don't want to.
Well, I think individuals are the experts of their lives, right? So if you want to fuck all day, every day, right? If that's what you want, but then you also have to be real with yourself. If that's all I'm doing, am I making long lasting connections.
Right.
And then there comes a point where you're sitting there at a certain point and you're like, damn, I fucked all these people and I got no one here.
Right.
Yeah.
I got one Christmas gift.
Because I hear in sex, I hear that it's an energy exchange.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like what that person is harboring and stuff,
Yeah.
and like what you're harboring. It's like you guys will exchange it onto each other, if not pick it on.
Right.
So it's just like I had a situation where I dealt with that, where it was just like I was having sex with him, and it's just like after the situation, every single time I just started feeling like this like dark cloud like over me,
Wow.
and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like I would just be cruising going home, just like in this like depressed ass mood. Until like I was just like, all right, you know what, I can't do this.
And normally when you have sex, you're supposed to be on like this.
You're supposed to feel like euphoric almost.
Yeah.
This is just like
Mhm.
I didn't feel none of that. I was just like, what the fuck? It was so
That was a
weird. I
demon,
had to
baby. That was a demon.
I had to stop.
Demon
I was
penis.
like, I was like, I
That
don't know.
wasn't demon time. It was demon time. The wrong time.
My sign, so sun sign's a Gemini. Yeah, moon is Cancer, rising is Taurus.
Okay. Do you know your houses?
Like the rest of my chart? Yeah, I do.
Definitely read up on that. That helps a lot.
All right, I'm gonna read it. Okay, so that was it. Decadent. Yeah. So it's the houses, the rising, and your moon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you said radical. So you're open to the astrology and them believing into that. Okay. All right. Cool.
I believe that we are part of something a lot bigger.
Of course.
I definitely agree.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that as well.
We are just a speck.
Really? Definitely a spec. Yeah, like I do that. I mean, I think we're all analyzing our dates though.
Absolutely.
I mean, you come with some more like textbook, like real
he got
educational
the
shit.
whole like I'm
Yeah.
about to read you, tell you all about your life before you even finish that sentence.
But I don't. Okay, I want people to know I don't.
You don't.
I do not come to dates with that energy. No.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
That's good though.
That scares people away.
I know. Do you tell them what you do?
Yeah. Mhm.
And do they shift or they just? Oh, they do.
It ain't for the week.
Right.
Mm-mm,
Yeah.
it's not. Right?
Yeah. If you're weak,
But I
like-
also tell them because I also don't want certain expectations to be developed without them knowing what I do. Right.
Mm.
So that some days after a day of work, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
So I also need someone who's okay with silence.
Right.
That is true. Like,
Yeah.
the
Just want to
fuck
come
alone.
home and cuddle, just watch TV and like
Mhm.
You and this
turn
cuddling.
off. Huh?
You and this cuddling.
It's winter. I like to cuddle.
I
No.
was gonna say lately.
Have I
you've
been
been
saying
all about-
cuddling a lot?
You really have. You really
I'm gonna
have.
unpack that. Well, we're supposed to be doing I Want to Date Derek. See, you're messing up.
Exactly. No.
She
I
did this
brought
joke
it
on
up.
one of the shows. I Want to Date Derek.
I brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking Terry.
Dating Derek. That's in 2023. I don't want to, yeah. Oh, I got good news for you too.
Okay.
Yeah. But look at him. He's just happy. What do we want to add? I think I want to do like a retreat. Are you like good with group therapy? Like,
Yeah.
are you open to that?
For sure, it really just depends on the individuals of how you set up the group, right?
Okay.
Because in a group, there's no confidentiality. I can't ensure that happens. So if you're sitting there talking about your deepest, darkest trauma, right? I can't confirm that information is not going to leave the space. So as long
Yeah.
as individuals are okay with that
Oh yeah.
dynamic,
Because folks got a big ass mouth.
Oh no, there'll be documents signed. There'll be something. Just like, hey, what happens here stays here in this room. It's a safe space, right? We
That's
can
what they say
create
in
that.
Vegas too.
Yeah.
But does that happen? Not all the time.
Well, right,
Not all the
sometimes, but
time.
we're not going to do the therapy session in Vegas. That'll be the celebratory. How do you feel about like marijuana or alcohol? Are you?
Into therapy?
No, I'm just saying as a
Oh.
therapist, because some people like he's saying he's radical. I'm like, how do you feel about those type of vices that people
Mhm.
like? Are you okay with marijuana or is it like?
Sure. I mean, it's not my rule, right?
Okay.
So it really depends on the client and how they're using those devices to cope, right?
Okay.
If you're coming home after a long day and you're stressed and overwhelmed, are you drinking a glass of wine or a bottle of wine,
Mm.
right? And then is it getting to the point where you need a bottle every night? Then that becomes a little problematic. But it depends if they see it as an issue, right? If I say, you have an issue, Derek, and you're like, no, I don't. I'm
Right.
like, okay, so you haven't identified an issue. What is there to fix? I can't
Oh.
force you to fix something that you don't see as an issue. So it just really depends on how the client sees their usage.
That's true. Because what you don't know, obviously you don't know.
If you don't
Yeah.
know, if you don't know. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if they don't bring it up.
But there are studies that there's a clinic in Seattle right now that it's a marijuana and therapy clinic, and what you do is you smoke a joint before you go to your therapy session, and it has been scientifically proven that clients are more willing to open up under the influence of marijuana.
Do you see me right now?
Right.
Or,
everything. No.
or you know,
Before
there's programs like I got into a MDMA assisted therapy program that I'll be doing next year, which is ecstasy in therapy.
Oh,
Learning how
wow.
to
Oh,
live
that's
ecstasy
it.
while and then doing therapy.
That's a bit
while-
extreme.
Well, I think that's for people with extreme trauma, right? When you think about
Oh.
other holistic medicines, in Costa Rica, there's ayahuasca, which is a root, right? But it's a root that makes you hallucinate, makes you see things, right? But that drug is good for PTSD and alcoholism.
Oh yeah.
You know, things,
Wow.
things that are drugs come from natural, like,
They are,
fucking
yeah.
plants. And it's just like, if you know how to control that shit and give it out in, like, the proper doses that's supposed to be given out in, I do feel
I could
like
just see myself smoking a joint before I go to therapy, and then 45 minutes. Derek, listen, I got one more thing. I got one more thing. You get like this. I got one more thing, Doc. I want to get this off my chest.
Right. Well, if you
Yeah.
look at Mexico, right?
Mhm.
You could go to any pharmacy in Mexico right now and get a perk
Hmm.
without a prescription, right? What's their opiate? Do they have an opiate issue in Mexico?
No, because they know they must be doing something right. Because
Right?
over
So
here,
it's like you have a pharmacy that is willing to give you any drug in the world
right.
without a prescription, without a doctor's order, and your opiate prices is really low.
Wow,
I think that makes sense,
that can make sense, y'all.
right? But here in the U.S., you have to have a prescription, and our opiate use is crazy.
Yeah, it's a pill popping candy girls out here.
So it really,
Tax
when it comes to
tax.
substance, it really depends on how the individual is using it and how they're coping with it, or
Okay.
using it to cope.
But it definitely, some things can help you cope with certain things, like with trauma and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, if you use it. Is there anything we missed you want to kind of, because I feel like this can be, I'm going to have Eric come back. Like,
of course.
yeah.
I would love to have him back.
is there anything you want to,
What therapy, like, do you focus on? Like, what's your specialty?
So it's just like psychodynamic therapy, right? So it's talk therapy. I pull from a model called CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. See what your thought patterns are like. See how the thought patterns are associated to behaviors. We could change thought patterns. That means we could change behaviors.
Yes.
Right? I also bring in inner child work into my session, right? And how I like to explain inner child work is, we come into this world as an empty manual, right? And through our child development, and through our experiences, through our observations, through what we're taught as children, right? We start to write down in this manual our core beliefs, our core values, how we think we have to show up, how we think we have to navigate. That manual gets passed up to our adult version, and we're like, bet, we have to live a life like this, right? But we have to come to a point to realize that this manual was written during a time where you had no control and no power.
right,
There's a lot of shit in this manual that no longer serves you in your
Right.
adulthood.
exactly.
So I like to bring in that component as well, because I think we have to tap into the childhood to be able to understand the
Like, what would you telling yourself then and what you're telling yourself now? 'Cause
everything you
that's-
do now
Yeah.
is because of that inner child.
Wow. Look at that. Look at that.
This inner child needs healing.
We need a lot of here at Fire XL. We was gonna have a fire today, but we got enough fire going on in this conversation. But I just want to say thank you. I want to give you your flowers. This is not, what's that show? Drink Champs. I don't have, to give them flowers. It's coming. But I just wanted to publicly thank you for being who you are in the world. And just out of the many friends I've had, but like, you're up there in like my top 3 friends. Like, I admire and I'm inspired by the work that you're doing in our community with
Thank you.
yourself. I get inspired. I see you having fun with your friends when you guys go away and dress up. I think that's totally fun. And just being who you are and just watching you transform on Instagram, just in life, has just been inspiring to me and just makes me want to do stuff like this. And so I'm just happy that you're here. So I just wanted to say that, like, you're doing a great job. Loving yourself and understanding who you are. It's like it's a big thing. And I think people need to just start opening up more and saying what they want out of life and making those necessary changes and tweaks, to take their life to the next level. And I think this is important. So
It definitely is.
super happy that you're here and you're alive and you're doing things for the people. And we'll have your information in our description if you want to reach out. I can't get therapy from him because we're friends. I remember I went to him one time and he said, I was like, I need you. He said, no.
Just remember, whatever you are not changing, you are choosing.
Right.
That is true.
That's it. And thank you for watching Fire XL. And we'll see you soon. Peace.
each other all the time, but
Right.
if you send me a text, yo,
Yeah.
I need you. Bet.
Right.
What do
Yeah.
you need? I'm there. Right. So
Right.
there's that.
Yeah, vice versa.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be consistent communication.
No.